technology of electronics and how you can use it to help you, especially when you're on a new body of water. But I always talk about for muskie fishing, looking for the food a lot. That's important. Knowing how sharp a break line is can be another real important thing. The other thing I look for a lot is obviously structure like weeds and rocks. And one thing that's particularly interesting that's been real successful for me in recent years is finding real deep weeds and sandgrass, that type of thing, fishing some of this deeper structure. If you can use the side scanning technology to determine when you're fishing a spot for the first time where the actual breaks are when you're positioning your boat so you can hopefully cover everything. I'm running 4 screens right here right now. I've actually got my chart up, I've got my sonar up, I've got my down scan and side scan. What I've got here is a particularly interesting thing. I saved this screenshot and you can see my chart here. That's one thing that's great about this down scan and side scan though, is that the chart isn't always completely accurate. You can see on the sonar area here, we've got some stuff down there. You might consider it stuff. You're not sure exactly what that is maybe. It's a combination of fish and weeds to me, but you look here on the down scan and you can see that those are actually weeds mainly with a few little fish sitting in there. Now on the side scan with this super sharp break that we have, I find it particularly interesting because you can see this is the base of the break, basically the bottom here, and you can see some of these weeds that showed up over here on the down scan. So if you want to position your boat to where you're actually covering up onto the flat and basically, let's say halfway back on your retrieve, hitting that sharp break and finishing your retrieve in the deep water, you know exactly where that sharp break is, if it's 20, 30, or 40 feet away, and it really helps for boat positioning.
Knowing where to look is important, but with muskies you could be looking all day at the best structure ever without getting much in return. Magic hour is magic hour, but with muskies it's a little different and more complex than with other freshwater species.
What a great morning. We haven't been fishing more than 10 minutes, have we? No.
Sun and moon, rise and set times play a major factor in supplementing pairing your best spots, or spots that just look right on the graph, with a heightened natural chance at a bite.
Going, Dave.
Hey, there we go.
I'll get the net, Dave.
Oh yeah, that's sounding good.
Super Dave's on the board.
Super Dave.
It got smaller. What happened to it?
It got smaller. Get it in there!
Oh. Get in there! We're on the board again, Dave!
It might be a bit hard to see in the dark and with the camera so close, but Dave's deep water spinner catch is a perfect example of a really nice-sized muskie.
Oh yeah, he's a heavy girl. Nice fish, Dave.
Woo!
Nice fish.
Nice fish.
Right at last light.
Girth on that thing.
Right at last light, I love it.
It's a solid fish.
Had the moonrise in our favor, Dave?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Supposed to get her back in?
Yep.
Go back.
The Real Deal, real fishing information from real fishing experts. Presented by Amsoil.
Twin power poles down, I'm pegged alongside a little channel that goes underneath a bridge from lake to lake. That's a very popular area for walleyes because there's usually a current that creates itself in between as that water flows back and forth underneath the bridge. And my favorite techniques for working areas like this, obviously one would be jigging, and then I've got another technique I'm going to tell you about in a minute that's pretty cutting edge stuff. But let's start off with the jigging part. Essentially, I just work the area, the little deeper edges and basin of that channel. And I cast with a typical jigging stroke. And normally I'll be using 2.5 or 3-inch gulp minnows. But let me show you, this is a new tail, it just came out. It's become one of my favorite tails now, especially when the jig bite is real aggressive. When the fish are really on, I like to go to this tail. One of the reasons, it's more durable. I can get a lot more fish on it, work it through the snags, and it doesn't come off as easy. One of the really cool things is how flexible this tail is. I'm using a gold, it's called a clear golden shiner color because this lake system is tannic. It's kind of tea-colored water. But when I'm in a situation where I'm in a clear water area, I like to use the black shad. It looks like a normal minnow. And I think people who have followed me know that I like to use those natural colors in clear water. The other technique that's really cool is kind of an adaptation of an old style technique, a river technique, that has a new twist to it. This is a blade bait, and I mean people who walleye fish a lot, especially on the Mississippi system, other places where there's current, know how to use these baits. Basically, they were always fished vertically, kind of straight up and down, and you kind of jerk them hard and they fall back and you get bites on them. Well, the new adaptation is the fact that they end up being casted. I mean, that is the cutting edge technique right now. I learned it by fishing on the Mississippi this spring in a big tournament, and all the local guys were doing this. They were casting these little blake baits, so I started trying it, but it's real easy to work. You work it kind of like a fast jig, and you just cast it out. But if you watch my rod here, I'm jerking it in little jerks, and if I can, if the bottom's not real snaggy, I'll let it hit the bottom every time. But every time I'm making a jerk like this, I can feel that blade bait vibrating. I can be fishing in an area with a jig and then take out this little fin fisher and cast it, and all of a sudden you get a lot bigger fish. I don't know why that is, but it's pretty common. So cutting edge tournament technique, brand new one, and then a brand new bait for the jigging. They work really good. Hopefully I'm going to check a lot of these bridges today. By the time I get done with the day, I'm hoping I have a few fish.